When I first moved into the small, quiet neighborhood after one of the hardest years of my life, I never imagined that the person living right next door would slowly become the most important part of my story. My name is Hannah, and at that time my heart was heavy with disappointment and silent pain. My marriage had ended after I discovered that the man I once trusted had been unfaithful to me. The betrayal didn't just break my relationship, it shattered my confidence in love, trust, and the idea that someone could truly remain loyal. I left everything behind and moved into a modest house where I hoped time and distance would help me heal. I avoided conversations with neighbors, kept my curtains closed, and spent most evenings sitting quietly by the window with a cup of tea, wondering how life could change so quickly. A few weeks after I moved in, I noticed my neighbor for the first time. His name was Daniel. He lived in the small blue house next door and seemed to live a quiet life, much like mine. The first time we spoke was a simple moment. I was struggling to carry a heavy box from my car, and he walked over with a polite smile and asked if I needed help. His voice was calm, and there was a kindness in his eyes that immediately made me feel safe. I hesitated for a moment, not because I didn't need help, but because I had built a wall around my heart. Still, I nodded, and he carried the box inside my house without asking any questions. Before leaving, he simply said, "Welcome to the neighborhood. If you ever need anything, I'm right next door." For many days after that, our interactions were small but meaningful. Sometimes he would wave while watering his plants, and sometimes we would exchange a few polite words while collecting the mail. Daniel never pushed for conversation, and that was something I appreciated deeply. He respected silence, and in my quiet world, that meant more than he could possibly know. Slowly, those small greetings turned into short conversations about ordinary things, weather, work, the neighborhood, and sometimes about life in general. I learned that Daniel worked as a school teacher and spent much of his free time helping students who struggled with their studies. He had a gentle way of speaking about people, always choosing kindness over judgment. Months passed, and my life began to feel a little lighter. Daniel had become someone I looked forward to seeing, though I never admitted it to myself. One evening, when the sky was painted with soft shades of orange and pink, he knocked on my door holding 2 cups of coffee. He said he had accidentally made too much and thought I might like one. We sat on the small porch outside my house, quietly watching the sunset. That evening, for the first time in a long while, I laughed. It wasn't a big laugh, just a small, honest one, but it reminded me that my heart was still capable of feeling warmth. As our friendship grew, Daniel slowly became someone I trusted. One night, after a long day at work, I found myself telling him the truth about my past. I told him about my failed marriage, about the betrayal that had broken me, and about how I had lost faith in love. I expected him to respond with pity or awkward silence, but instead he listened carefully, his expression calm and understanding. When I finished speaking, he simply said something I would never forget. "What happened to you is painful, but it doesn't define the love you deserve in the future." His words were simple, but they felt sincere, and for the first time someone didn't treat my story like a tragedy. He treated it like a chapter that could still lead to something better. From that moment on, Daniel became more than just a neighbor or a friend. He became someone who reminded me that patience and kindness still existed in the world. He would bring homemade soup when I was sick, help fix small things around the house, and sometimes invite me to walk in the park nearby. There was never any pressure, never any expectation. Our connection grew slowly, like a seed that takes time to break through the soil. What made Daniel special wasn't grand gestures or dramatic words. It was the quiet consistency of his actions. He always kept his promises, even the smallest ones. If he said he would help repair the fence on Saturday morning, he would arrive exactly on time with his tools and a warm smile. If he promised to bring a book he thought I might enjoy, he would carefully place it on my doorstep with a small note. These small acts slowly rebuilt something inside me that had once been destroyed: trust. But life has a way of testing the strength of our hearts. One day, rumors began circulating in the neighborhood about Daniel. Someone mentioned that his previous relationship had also ended because of betrayal. At first, the words frightened me. I had promised myself that I would never again allow my heart to walk down the same painful path. For several days, I avoided him, unsure of what to believe. My past fears returned, whispering that trusting someone again might only lead to more heartbreak. Eventually, Daniel noticed the distance between us and gently asked if something was wrong. I hesitated, but honesty had become the foundation of our friendship, so I told him what I had heard. To my surprise, he didn't react with anger or defensiveness. Instead, he calmly explained that years ago he had been the one who was betrayed. His partner had been unfaithful, and the experience had taught him how deeply such pain could affect a person's life. That was why he always tried to treat people with patience and respect, because he understood how fragile trust could be. Hearing his story changed everything. For the first time, I realized that Daniel and I were not strangers standing on opposite sides of life's hardships. We were two people who had experienced the same kind of heartbreak and were trying to rebuild ourselves piece by piece. That realization brought us closer in a way that words could never fully describe. As seasons changed, our friendship quietly transformed into something deeper. We never rushed into calling it love, but it slowly revealed itself through our actions. We supported each other during difficult days, celebrated small victories, and shared quiet evenings filled with honest conversations. The walls around my heart began to fade, replaced by a calm sense of trust one had never expected to feel again. One evening, almost 2 years after I first moved into that neighborhood, Daniel invited me to sit on the same porch where we had once watched the sunset with 2 cups of coffee. The sky looked just as beautiful as it had that day, but my heart felt completely different. Daniel looked at me with the same gentle kindness he had always shown and said something that touched me deeply. He said he didn't know what the future would hold, but he knew that my presence had brought peace and happiness into his life. I realized then that love does not always arrive with excitement or dramatic declarations. Sometimes it grows quietly through patience, respect, and genuine care. I looked at Daniel and understood that the man who had once been just a helpful neighbor had become the person who helped me believe in love again. Our story wasn't about forgetting the pain of the past. It was about learning from it. The betrayal that once destroyed my faith in relationships had also taught me the value of honesty and loyalty. And through Daniel, I learned that true love isn't built on perfection. It is built on understanding, forgiveness, and the willingness to stand beside someone even when life becomes difficult. Today, when I look back at the moment I carried that heavy box into my new house, I smile at how a simple act of kindness changed the direction of my life. Daniel entered my story as a neighbor, became my closest friend, and eventually became the person who helped my heart heal. Our journey taught me that even after the deepest betrayal, love can return in the most unexpected ways. The truth is that life will always test our hearts. People may disappoint us, and trust may sometimes be broken. But if we allow bitterness to close every door, we might miss the chance to meet someone who truly understands our pain and chooses to treat us with kindness. My story with Daniel is proof that patience, respect, and honesty can transform even the most broken hearts into something strong again. And the greatest lesson I learned is simple but powerful. Betrayal may end a chapter, but it does not have the power to end the story of love. Sometimes, the person who helps us believe again is living just one door away, quietly waiting for the moment when our hearts are ready to open once more.